How much? Good to see you this morning. First Sunday here in April. Beautiful day we have, and glad you're here. Good to have our visitors with us. Glad you're here as well. We'll begin with a word of prayer this morning. Mike Randolph, will you lead some prayer, please? Amen. Today we're going to take a little study talking about ghosts and demons. It was a few weeks ago, maybe time gets by, but we talked about this a little bit and had a few more questions about it, and I thought, well, we'll cover it again a little bit, a little more detail about it. But a lot of people believe in ghosts, and they believe in demons. They believe that they exist in the world today in different forms and ways of doing such. But I wonder how many people would really believe it if there was no such thing as Hollywood. If you took Hollywood out of the picture, how many people would really believe that you can see ghosts or demons or things like that today if you took Hollywood away from all this? Because Hollywood is known for stretching the imagination, because they've got to keep doing things to keep people interested and make more and more and more about such in order for people to continue to watch. It's not on anymore, but it used to be a program a few years ago called Ghost Hunters. It was a pretty popular show. You can still watch reruns such as that on it. But they would go out here and they would go to maybe an old abandoned building or abandoned hospital or abandoned something or railroad tracks, and they would start searching, looking, and all of a sudden, there it is. They see something. And they see something in the next program. And, if they didn't see anything, people would quit watching. It's almost like they have got to produce something in order to keep an audience, in order to keep the sponsors there to make money for the program. But if they don't see anything, then it's not Ghost Hunters anymore. So I think a lot of this, if you take Hollywood out, there wouldn't be near as much attention given to it as it is today, as to what Hollywood does. But it comes down to this. Am I going to believe what the Bible has to say about it and let that settle the issue? Or am I going to take what Hollywood has to say about it and let my imagination start running? And the terrible thing would be trying to take the two and put them together. There you really have a disaster if you were to do that. So that's what it comes down to. Am I going to believe the Bible and what it says? Or am I going to go out here and sort of take, what Hollywood says and everybody else that has something to say about it or written a book about it or something like that. I'm going to lean toward the Bible. I'm going to do more than lean toward the Bible. I'm going to get on the Bible side, and that's where I'm going to stay, on that side. Hollywood's Hollywood. They're trying to make $1. They're trying to take our dollars. I'm going to stay where the Bible is and let it be my final understanding of what it is. Well, here's sort of the definition of what a ghost is. A disembodied spirit or soul of a deceased person, often described as immaterial or partly transparent, such as reported to haunt particular locations or people that they were associated with in life or at the time of death. So there's the proper definition, you might call it. So here a person dies. Where does their soul go? Does it hang around for a while? You know, you hear a lot of Civil War stories about where a particular battlefield where there may have been hundreds or thousands of individuals killed, and people go back there and they start to see things. They'll see what this ghost or spirit or something like that, or an abandoned place where, whatever it may be a murder victim. Somebody was murdered in a place. And that murder hasn't been solved, and here comes this individual. Somebody's trying to tell them things such as that, and that's quite popular. But sometimes these spirits and ghosts have the ability to move things around. Not only do you see them, they'll move things here to there, where it may be. But then again, where's our authority for this? Are we going to see what the Bible has to say about it and say that settles it? Or is it going to be something else? I know me personally, I've never seen one. If I did, I didn't know what it was. But I've never had that kind of experience in trying to look. I've never been looking for them either. I've been in a graveyard at night, and that's a pretty scary place. You know, you hear creaks and pops and things and ruffling around. You might ask, why was I in a graveyard at night? It was a church thing. Had a bunch of kids here and there. And somebody's going to get in a graveyard and scare them when they came by. I was the one that got scared the most, just being in a graveyard at night, not the place you want to be. Well, let's ask this question. What happens when a person dies? What happens to their soul, their spirit? Well, Ecclesiastes 12:7 says, "Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it." So the dust being the body, it returns back to the earth. But the spirit returns to God. It's in God's hands now. It's in God's care. He'll handle the spirit in whatever form or fashion. How it left here is how it will be handled. But what you don't see here, by the time the person dies and the spirit returns to God, there's nothing here in between. They hang around for a while. Or they go here and they go there. No, body dies, it goes to the dust. The spirit, it doesn't die, but it goes to God. Psalms 90 verse 10, "The days of our lives are 70 years, if by reason of strength they are 80 years. Yet their boast is only labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away." There's the flying away, or meaning we depart from, our soul departs from our body that's been around for 70 or 80 years, if by reason of strength. So there's nothing there to suggest that there's a period between after death and then the time the one goes to the Hadean world. There's nothing to suggest that there's a space there. Nothing there to suggest that. In Luke 16:22 and 23, we find here the account when the rich man and Lazarus, when they both die. Verse 22, "So it was that the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. And the rich man also died and was buried. And being in torments in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. They both die. Lazarus is carried to the safety of Abraham. The rich man, he's carried to torment in the Hadean world. There's nothing there to say that they made a stop after death. There's nothing there. As soon as they died, they went either one to paradise side or the torment side of Hades. There's nothing there to suggest that. So you can't go to this verse and see anything different. There was death, then they opened their eyes, and they found themselves either in paradise or in torment. Now, in verse 27 of this account, Luke 16, we find what the rich man wanted. And then he said, I beg you, therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house. He's talking about Lazarus. Send him back to earth. For I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment. The rich man could not leave. Lazarus could not leave. They couldn't even go and visit each other. That's what the complete story is. So there was no leaving Hades after death. No leaving. So therefore, if you can't leave, if these spirits can't leave, what are people seeing? I don't know what they're seeing. But I don't think they're seeing what they think they're seeing. Our imagination can get pretty vivid sometimes. And in some cases, there's folks out there who will play a trick on you. They will do things. So there's the account of the rich man and Lazarus concerning the soul after it dies. Some people wonder, well, they have the idea that the dead can communicate with the living. After they're dead, they can communicate. It may be through a seance. You've seen these seances, maybe on television and such, how they try to call the dead back. There's all kind of country songs talking about, the people in heaven. It's always heaven. They're looking down and seeing what's the happenings of their loved ones on earth. Now, there's one, Holes in the Floor of Heaven. I can't remember who sang that. There's holes in the floor of heaven. They look down and tears coming down through. Anyway, there's all kind of songs about that. Well, the dead do not know what's going on earth. We know that by what Ecclesiastes 9, 5, and 6 speak of. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. And they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love, their hatred, and their envy have now perished. Nevermore will they have a share in anything done under the sun. Now, there's a lot in that verse. But he's telling us, once a person passes on, their work on this earth is done. And eventually, the memory of them will be forgotten. That's just part of life. Do we think that we're going to be remembered in 200 years from now? The answer is no. None of us are that important, I don't think. 200 years, who's going to come put flowers on the grave? Nobody. And it may be that somebody discovers and do one of these genealogy checks and find your name, and well, I didn't know that I was kin to that individual. And that's just the way life is. There are plenty of cemeteries around that people have forgotten about. They have no idea. And I've been to, just going to attending funerals, being a part of it, go to a cemetery, and I had no idea that cemetery existed. I know one, I don't know what the name of it is, Alan, where Shane Pinkerton was buried. Had to carry him up on that tractor and pull in the wagon. What is it? Oh, we don't. Yeah, top of a hill. Had no idea it was there. Okay. Morton Chapel back in that way. And the thing about it, what I didn't know, whenever Tracy Edwards was alive, how he liked the genealogy stuff and find people who buried here and there. He looks and he finds I have an aunt or somebody buried up there, a great aunt or great aunt buried up there. I had no idea. That's the way life is. And that's what he's speaking about here. Verse 5 there. The living know they're going to die. We know that. The dead know nothing. They're already dead. It's not that they're just in an unconscious state. Their affairs on earth are over. It's forgotten. And now they're before God and will be waiting the judgment of God as well. So the dead are not watching over us, interacting with us. You're not going to contact the dead. Don't worry about these mediums. Now, they're sort of died down now, these mediums who will come and tell you what this person is trying to tell you the dead person is. Anyway. So Ecclesiastes is pretty plain about it, showing that there's no communication afterwards. Whenever this discussion comes up, generally people think about Saul and how he called up Samuel. It's in 1 Samuel chapter 28. He gets this medium, the witch of Endor, to call Samuel up. And Saul has some questions for him. Well, in 1 Samuel 28, verse 7, then Saul said to the servants, find me a woman who is a medium, and I will go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, in fact, there is a woman who is a medium in Endor. So Saul disguised himself, put on other clothes, and he went, and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, please conduct a seance for me, and bring up for me one I shall name to you. Then the woman said to him, look, you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off the mediums and the spiritists from the land. Why then do you lay a snare for me, for my life, to cause me to die? So he disguises himself as King Saul. He goes to this medium. She knows this is not right. I get caught, I'm dead. Verse 10, and Saul swore to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing. Then the woman said, whom shall I bring up for you? And he said, bring up Samuel for me. And the woman saw Samuel. She cried out with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, why have you deceived me, for you are Saul? So this woman cries, Samuel comes up from this. It seems like she cries out, she screams, scares her after seeing this. You would think she'd be used to it by now, and she does it all the time. But I think God allowed her to do this. He allowed her to do this because he's teaching Saul a lesson here. He's fixing to bring Saul down. In verse 13, 1 Samuel 28, and the king said to her, do not be afraid. What do you see? And the woman said to Saul, I see a spirit ascending out of the earth. So he said to her, what is his form? And she said, an old man is coming up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed down. So here's the event. Samuel is called up. He's recognizable. Saul, at least how he's described, recognizes. And if you don't know the rest of the story, you can read it there. But it didn't go well for Saul, what Samuel had to say to him. Not well at all. Now there's another event in the New Testament. It's not a seance. Another event when the dead were called up. 2 individuals. I'm thinking of two people that were called up. Transfiguration. I'm thinking of that one. Yeah, now at the crucifixion, the dead rose. They came back to life. Transfiguration. You have Elijah and Moses that were there speaking with Christ about his upcoming death. So there's another time when God brought the dead to speak with the living. He brought them up. And of course, after it was over, they went back to their respective places, Elijah and Moses did. But that's only 2 times that we have it happening, where God summons the dead to come back and speak to the living and then go back. I'm not talking about raising them from the dead. He did that on occasion. This is when he summoned them from the dead, and they went back. They were still dead and went back to where they were. So that's only 2 times when it happened. And God was involved in both of them when it happened. So how do you explain what people are seeing? They're seeing something. How do you explain that? When they see ghosts in various places. If you remember Job, he had his friends who came to him. And his friends were out there. They were blaming Job for everything. They were saying, Job, the reason you're in such a bad condition is because of something you did in your life, somewhere back behind you somewhere. And Job kept saying, I've done nothing that bad. Well, in Job chapter 4, look what Eliphaz says to him. 4 and verse 12. Now a word was secretly brought to me, and my ear received a whisper of it. And this is Eliphaz talking to Job. And disquieting thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on men. Fear came upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones shake. Then a spirit passed before my face. The hair on my body stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice saying, can a mortal be more righteous than God? Can a man be more pure than his Maker? Eliphaz goes to sleep. He sees something, probably a dream, and he's trying to get across to Job, again, you've done something wrong. You're not greater than your Maker. And he's trying to get across to Job, this vision that I saw here, this vision is trying to tell me something for me to tell you something. That's what he's trying to get across. Did Eliphaz see anything? Did he? Did he not? Why don't we let God answer the question? Because later, God says something to Eliphaz about all his dealings with Job, and it comes in chapter 42 and verse 7. And so it was, after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, that the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is aroused against you and your 2 friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. He's telling Eliphaz, the things you have told Job, all a lie. There's nothing right about it. And that would include all the advice that these 3 friends were given to Job to tell him he had done something terribly wrong. He needed to repent of it. Plus all this dreaming stuff that Eliphaz was having. God tells Eliphaz, don't do this anymore. You have misrepresented me. I did not speak to you in a dream. I did not do anything that you're accused. Job did not do anything you accused him of. And on it goes. So there we have Job, at least in the book of Job, God putting Eliphaz in his place where he should be. He needs to not be making these things up. He was making it up. It's what God is saying here. Eliphaz made it up. We've got to remember that people will do things for a profit. And if you're going to make up a ghost story, you're going to have to produce a ghost. You're going to have to do that. People aren't going to believe it. We'll have to make it up. In Acts 8, verse 9 through 11, look what Simon said he could do. Acts 8, 9 through 11. There was a certain man called Simon who previously practiced sorcery in the city and astonished the people of Samaria, claimed that he was someone great, to whom they all gave heed, from the least to the greatest, saying, "This man is the great power of God." And they heeded him because he had astonished them with his sorceries for a long time. This sorcery stuff, getting people to believe things, has been around for a long time. And Simon the sorcerer here, as he is called, he was a fake. He was fooling people. From the least to the greatest, he was fooling people. Because you remember when Peter and John coming to Samaria, he wanted to buy their power. He knew he couldn't do it. He wanted to buy their power to do this. And of course, he had to repent of that. He couldn't do it in the first place. And those who make the claim that they can't, even today. Do not believe them. So there's the ghost, the spirits. We've looked at that a little bit there. A little bit. And look at demons just real quick. Demons, we know they existed during the Bible times because the Bible speaks of them. When I say Bible times, I'm talking about during the New Testament times. And then while the apostles were around before their death, you had demons. But demons are never spoken of in the Old Testament. You never find them there. And what it seems to be happening, it seems that for a period of time, that God allowed the demons to come out of the torment, the abyss, the torment part, and for a while to let them roam the earth. And they would overtake individuals, and then Christ or the apostles would come about, and they would show their power. And not even the demons had power over them. I mean, not even the demons had power over Christ or the apostles. And it seemed like that's what was shown by that, why God would allow it. In Luke 8, verse 26, we don't really have time to read all this, but that's where the man was in the graveyard, was demon-possessed, and they tried to come and chain him up and everything. He was beating people up and running around. That's where he lived, and nobody could stop him. And Christ comes along, and there he had many demons in him, a legion, he said. And, of course, they begged Christ not to send us to the abyss or back to torment. And Christ sent them into the pigs. And then the pigs went over the edge of the cliff there, and they all drowned. And then when people realized this, the man was back to himself. He was sitting, and was in his right mind, the scriptures say about that man. Well, that's the account that Christ gave of this. He was there. He took care of the demons. But here's a few things that we know about demons. They could inhabit in humans and animals. We find the pigs, of course. They had superhuman strength. That man that could break the chains, could hold him down. They knew Jesus. You can also put they knew the apostles as well, and they submitted to them. They knew they were under sentence. They knew where their final abode was going to be. It was going to be in torment. They knew that. And of course, after the man was freed from the demons, he was normal again. So it didn't affect him after the demons who left. But who are these demons? I think they're simply angels of the devil. 2 Peter 2:4 For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them to chains of judgment to be reserved for judgment. That's just fallen angels. Matthew 12:24. Now when the Pharisees heard it, they said, "This fellow does not cast out demons except by Beelzebub, the ruler of the demons." Beelzebub being the devil himself. So a demon, it's just a fallen angel is what it can be. Now there's some who have had this crazy idea that it's the evil people that have died, the real evil. And God allows them to come and start overtaking somebody. And you don't find that in the scriptures either. Evil people who have died and then they're able to overcome somebody. You don't find that. Again, when you die, you're going to one of two places, but yet God apparently allowed this to happen. And then in Mark 16, 17, and 18, that's where we find where the ability to cast out these demons. And these signs will follow those who believe. In my name, they will cast out demons. So these apostles could do so. And the individuals they laid hands on could do so. But after the apostles died, that was it. For those they give their power to, that was it. There was no more demon possession. So does it take place today? No. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 13, all these miraculous events that the apostles could do have ended. There's no more of the miraculous things, and that would include casting out demons. Are there mean people around today? Mean, evil? You better believe it. Evil, mean. Why would a person want to treat somebody else in the way that they do? They're just mean and evil. Doesn't mean that they're demon possessed. They're just mean and evil. So if you were to compare what took place in the Bible for those who say they can cast out demons, they don't compare. Christ did it just like that with the Word, but today they got to go through all these rituals and things they go through, and spinning heads and throwing up everywhere and all that kind of stuff. You don't find that in the Scriptures. When Christ said out, they were out. He never failed. And the apostles never failed either. Once they became apostles, they never failed. Anyway, that's just a little more detailed information on this topic. You may be more confused than ever. You may go home and start seeing demons everywhere. I hope not. But anyway. All right, time for the bell. We'll conclude here.